7 in the morning. The sounds of a police car. Whoop, whoop. I'm just trembling. Come out right now. We saw you on the news this morning.
A cop that arrested you twice? I didn't know anything about this backstory.
Everyone has seen this except me.
I think the CNN story pretty much changed your life.
People always give you what they have. They give you what they don't need anymore. I mean, she says, what do you need? No one had ever asked me that. I'm a Yale graduate. I should be able to figure this out. We often become the adjective that people put before us. You feel that as the person being interviewed, defined by that one condition. Those terms did the most damage to me when I was homeless.
You have this experience with journalists and reporters.
I'm glad you asked that because I've made some copious notes.
Los Angeles Press Club asked me to create a podcast series on journalism and homelessness. Our first guest is Shawn Pleasants. Shawn is a Yale graduate, a banker, an entrepreneur who ended up homeless in Los Angeles. It was because of a CNN story that got him off the streets. What's important about listening to Shawn and other people with lived experience is how journalists treat homeless people. Shawn, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your story, your background.
I'm originally from Texas. I was in band. I ended up being valedictorian in my high school. I graduated from Yale with a degree in economics and owned my own business, my own home, and things were pretty good. My mother got colon cancer. After a few months, she was gone. I was completely just taken off my feet. My business was failing. I didn't care to try to fix it. I had no purpose. And I kind of just let things go. I was, looking back on it now, I needed to see a mental health professional, but I didn't even know what those were at that time. My husband and I did our best to hold things together. We ended up, staying with friends here and there, living in my car, and we kept thinking things were going to get better. We always had hope. We'll figure it out. We'll land on our feet. We always do. Why will it be different this time? A year later, when we're still living in the Explorer, that's when I realized we were homeless. It's something that kind of crept up on me. It wasn't something that, I guess I was in denial the whole time. So I didn't see it that way. We were just this close to being okay again in my mind. I won't say embrace, but I had to learn the game. I had to learn how the rules of the street worked. I had to learn survival. It's one thing to survive in your job, in your home, in your corporate world. It's a whole nother thing to survive on the street. Each and every day having to figure out where you're going to find food, where you're going to find water, if your shelter or tent is still there, who your neighbors are. You can't choose them. They kind of move wherever they want to. Whether they're friend or foe, do I have to pay a tax? Does it mean there's going to be violence in that tax? Does it mean there's going to be loss of my belongings in that tax? Where am I going to use the restroom? Throughout the day? Am I going to be able to clean up at all? What happens at night? That's when you lose a lot. And
there's no vacation days. There's no personal days. It's every single day.
When you see us lying there on the street, we're exhausted. That's what we are. We're exhausted. We're in the sun. We're in the elements. We're in the weather. Our mind is just filled with all these things, thoughts of survival, things that you take for granted, like rolling out of bed at 3:30 in the morning to go to the restroom. I can't do that. I got to roll out of bed and I got to find a restroom, and no one will let me in if you can find a place that's open. And then people wonder why people are urinating and defecating in the streets. Well, there's nowhere else to go in this city. Tell me where there is a place that someone can easily access. There just aren't any. You might be able to name 5 or 6. Well, it's a city of over 4 million. That's woefully inadequate. There's nowhere to throw trash away. All dumpsters in Los Angeles are locked. So there's no point to trying to stay clean and keep things up because there's nowhere to put it. There's just all these myriad of issues that people that you don't realize until you're faced with them. We lost our vehicle. We thought ourselves as being fortunate in having our own portable roof over our head. The city continued to write tickets on it. I had a handicap placard. I had it duct taped to the front windshield. The meter readers would still write me tickets regardless. I would take the tickets to the Wilshire Parking Bureau, and they look at me and they said, "Well, it's your word, a homeless person, versus a deputized officer. We're going to believe the officer. And it didn't matter if I brought pictures, I did everything, it didn't matter. And the tickets double and quadruple. And eventually the vehicle was taken away. And would you know, on my first time sleeping on the ground, I got a ticket for sleeping on a public sidewalk. My first time. And
Wow.
I didn't get that ticket resolved until 2021, after I'd been housed for over a year, and with the help of 2 lawyers and 1 judge. What a waste of resources,
Yeah.
and
No.
time.
And the
Also,
criminalization of homelessness continues to grow.
yes, and my husband got a citation for using a shopping cart to move our things, which we learned very quickly was an issue. Yeah, it was very tough. I wasn't made for that. No one's made for that environment.
You went to college at Yale,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you're living in a tent in Koreatown.
Yeah.
That is a culture shock.
The culture shock was one thing. The hardest part was getting over myself. The hardest part was dealing with the embarrassment, the shame, the self-judgment that I felt upon myself. I couldn't receive help. I didn't deserve help.
The low self-esteem.
I believed the narrative that was before me because, in particular, I felt if anyone should be able to not be in this situation or get out of it, it was me. Yet there I was. And let me tell you a quick story. On my family had been trying to find out what's going on and so forth. So I'd call them every 6 months or so and tell them everything's fine. I'm just trying to get things together. I would give them the fewest details possible because I didn't want them to know how I was living, what was going on. They knew, they'd figured it out, but they had no way to really reach me or to help me. My older brother, since he lived in West LA, would come often looking for me, and he was determined to find me. So he would walk the streets of Koreatown and drive them. And he actually ended up finding people who knew who I was because we stayed in Koreatown for basically the majority of the 10 years that we were on the street. You make roots, you make friends, you learn the resources, and it's much easier to survive when you're not having to, everything isn't changing all the time. But anyway, he found me, and I was in my tent, and someone says, "Hey, someone says your brother's here, and he's with his girlfriend. They have food and some gifts and some money, and just want to wish you well and come by. Why don't you go ahead and come out?" And then they said it again. And then it was my brother, Shawn, are you in there? Just, hey, this is Dean, just trying to see how you're doing. More silence. And then I started to just cry uncontrollably. All I could do was cry. And I couldn't open the zipper. I didn't want to. I mean, I just could not. I was frozen. And I sat there until they left.
Wow.
A foot away from him. He left the things for me outside the tent, and I just could not open that zipper. This is my older brother. This is the person we raced down the yard to see who could touch the fence the fastest. Yeah. I couldn't let him see me like that. It just wasn't going to happen. And that's something people often don't realize. It's not that people don't want help. Sometimes we just, it's too hard. Yeah. And there's more to it. I want people to realize it's a difficult thing, and I don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole.
When I was homeless, people asked me, what was it like? And I said, I beat myself up every day. How did I get here? And how am I going to get out? And I can't convey to other people the emotions and the hopelessness of being homeless. That's all I can come up with.
Yeah.
And your story is extremely powerful because, it talks about that, and it talks about how we are just so hurt and don't want the world to see us, even when it's family.
Oftentimes when you are given an opportunity to be seen, you feel too out there and open. So I have actually said to someone once when they asked me, well, what happened ever? I actually said that, nothing happened. I chose this. When those words came out of my mouth, I couldn't believe it because I'm like, yeah, this is what people want to hear from us. Or they'll tell, oh, they choose to be that way. They're no. That keeps me from having to feel those emotions at that
Yeah.
moment. When you're asking me that question, like everyone else asking that damn question, what happened?
Yeah.
I failed is what happened. But we go into fight mode. You square up, and I square up by saying I chose this.
Most people that are out on the streets tried to get out of homelessness
Yeah.
when they
Yes.
first ended, but they hit that wall,
Yeah.
and it's extremely hard to get help. So then the brain starts saying, "Oh, I want to be here. I like
Right.
being here. I
Right.
chose to be here." Yeah,
For me, it was a protection mechanism.
yeah,
It kept
yeah,
me from feeling those things. It kept me from falling apart.
yeah.
Because if
Exactly.
I were to answer that question truthfully to the stranger before me, I probably would have just crumbled to the ground sobbing,
Uh-huh.
because
Yep.
like you said, each and every day you're asking yourselves how this happened, how come I can't get out of this, and it's adding up and it's adding up, and I
Yeah.
have to push it down into that box and keep it aside,
Yeah.
and you have to keep moving forward. And we lost and suffered so much in the first years because we were trying to get out.
Yeah.
And when you're focused on just trying to get off the street, you can't focus on living that moment. You can't focus on keeping yourself safe. You can't focus on hanging onto what you have. You can't focus on keeping your self-respect and dignity. All those things are being whittled away and taken away from you. And then all of a sudden you realize, I have to fight. I'm
Yeah.
here. I've been here for 4 or 5 years now. And oh my God, and I'm so focused on this other stuff that isn't happening. I've gone through all these housing programs and all these outreach workers and this, that, and the other. And each time your hopes get raised and then dashed,
Yeah.
raised and then dashed over and
Exactly.
over. And then you realize the best thing is for me to figure out how to live the best life, if there is such a thing, in the situation I'm in at this
Yeah. Yeah.
moment.
Yeah. So briefly, tell me about life now.
I'm no longer homeless. I've been housed for over 4 years. I've been clean and sober for 4 years and 2 months. I have
Congratulations.
become a homeless advocate. I never would have thought 4 years ago, from living in that tent, that I would have gone to Washington this past summer, met with 8 Congress members to talk about homelessness and to talk about how different issues affect homelessness. I never would have thought that I would be meeting with the mayor every other month on a regular schedule. I'm using my voice. I'm speaking. I'm surviving,
Yeah.
and it feels good to be able to contribute in ways that help others, in ways that help myself
Yeah.
still,
Yep.
um, and to try to
And
change some of
speaking
the
of
narrative.
using your voice,
Yeah,
a little bit behind the scenes, because we met once when you
yeah,
were homeless,
yeah,
and I was doing Invisible People stories, and you were down, you were like sick.
yeah.
So you didn't even want to really come out of your tent. You like put your head out a little
Right,
bit, right?
right, right, yeah,
So you would have been on Invisible People. Now that
yeah,
you're housed, which is better, that's the
yeah,
better outcome,
yes,
right? Um,
yes,
but
yeah,
you have, as you said, you have this experience with journalists and reporters.
yes.
And can you tell me, because I think the CNN story pretty much changed your life.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. And
Can you tell
that
me
was,
about that? So,
I was asked, well, I don't even know how to set this up. There was a group called K-Town for All. It still exists, that helps the homeless people in there. It was formed after there were protests in Koreatown over a proposed shelter to be built on Vermont near Wilshire, and I got to know them pretty well because they were a little different from the other outreach groups that came out. Most outreach groups are kind of serious. They got clipboards and they're trying to
yeah,
get you to go somewhere right now and yada yada, and it's all this pressure and unknowns, and just they come around with water, with energy bars, tarps, blankets, smiles,
yeah,
and
yeah.
conversation.
We
Um,
did a documentary on them, and I'll make sure to link it when this goes public.
and in particular, there was this woman, Sharon, and she was just the friendliest person. And we would always talk at length when she'd come by. Like her little group would start leaving, and we'd still be talking. She'd have to catch up to them. She started introducing me to people who want to interview folks on the street and set up a
I
few
was one
interviews.
of them. That's how
Yeah.
I connected with you.
So it's about 10:30 at night. I hear a faint voice, excuse me, Shawn Pleasants. I'm trying to reach. Is Shawn there? And I'm like, yeah. Who is this? And then this guy goes, well, I'm actually the husband of Sharon. You might know from K-Town for All. Sharon got a request for someone to speak to CNN. It's for first thing in the morning, he said. And I said, what do you mean first thing? He said, like 6 a.m. We want someone to really represent, what the community in a good way. So he's like, yeah, so around 6 in the morning, they'll come by, so be ready. I know it's kind of early. If you need someone to come by and wake you up, I'll do that. And he did. And I remember that morning vividly. I was so freaked out. My mind was going, what have I done? I had the whole night to think about CNN. This is broadcast. This is national. Yeah. Who are these people? What are they going to ask me? Are they going to embarrass me? Am I going to embarrass myself? 6 o'clock was still approaching. I saw 3 guys with cameras standing there and okay, they looked like journalists. Well, me and Dan Simon started talking. I gave him some of my background, and it kind of piqued his interest in another direction. Suddenly, he goes, this just sounds so incredible. A Yale graduate, you're here. And I'm like, I'm not the only one. I said, there's a famous photographer right around the street a young lady I met, and I can show you her pictures at the Smithsonian. She's a photographer. There's a jazz harmonica player over here who's also in the Music Hall of Fame, and I could show you his information. And I know these things sound fantastical, but I had met these people. And so he goes, well, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to have to fact check all of this information. So he called the CNN data bureau or whatever it is they called and had on speaker, and he fed them my name and social security and information and said, okay, they'll call me back in 10 minutes and let me know what they found. And the phone rang, and then he's like, okay, your father was, retired military. You graduated from Yale, valedictorian, yes, in your high school. You worked on Wall Street, okay, at JP Morgan, and started telling me my resume back to me. Then he goes, are you ready for this? Then we're going to do an interview. We proceeded to talk about my life and how I got there, what a day in the life of Shawn looked like, on the street. Took him through, the belongings. We had a lot of stuff. I mean, we were the people that probably everyone else hates. We had all the carts and everything and all the things lined up. And then we concluded the interview. And then I realized I didn't want to be exposing my family, my friends,
right.
My Yale colleagues and friends, people I've worked with. Yeah. I suddenly felt this wash of guilt and embarrassment come over me. This is going to come out. And that weekend, I just sat there in my tent, just feeling awful. What have I unleashed? How have I shamed my family? Monday rolled around, and the first thing I hear at 7 a.m. were the sounds of a police car. Whoop, 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 whoop. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? It's too early in the morning for this BS, Then I hear the sound of the car engine right next to the tent, which meant the police car was now on the curb. Then I hear someone say, Shawn Pleasants, please come out of the tent. Come out of the tent. Shawn Pleasants, I know you're there. Shawn Pleasants. I'm just trembling. I started looking around my tent. He said, come out right now. So finally I open the tent and I step out and they go, there he is right there. That's him. That's the guy. I arrested you twice. We were down at the Olympic transfer station watching CNN, and we saw you on the news this morning. And a few of my buddies and I want to see if we can get autographs. And
a cop that arrested you twice?
4 of them, yes.
Oh my God! I didn't know anything about this backstory. Yes. Oh wow!
And he's bragging to the other cops. Yeah, I arrested him twice. He's real good fella. Yeah, and I think once I got you for paraphernalia, once I got you for possession. Yeah, that's what it was. And do you mind signing our books here? And they all came up and had me sign 4 autographs.
Wow!
On the hood of their car.
Wow!
At 7:03 in the morning.
So that was your first sign that your life was about to change.
Right. That was the first way that I knew that the interview had run. People started coming by. Strangers, folks I didn't know, coming by, dropping things off, different camping supplies, tents and lanterns and flashlights and stuff all day. People just started coming by. Wow. A couple friends from my former life found me that I was in a running club with found me. My old college roommate and his wife found me. COO of the company I used to work for at one point here in Los Angeles. She found me.
Well, the anxiety you had about
Yeah.
your family and going
Oh,
public and being vulnerable, which is
well,
valid anxiety.
I still hadn't reached or talked to my family at all about it. It wasn't until the next day that I kind of finally, a lawyer, Shayla, who works with Mike Dickerson and others, actually came by, and she showed it to me on her phone because no one had bothered to let me see the interview.
Right. You're homeless. You're not tuning into CNN.
Yes, that was the funny part. Everyone has seen this except me. And then a woman from Yale came by. She had a hat on, Yale, and she walks up slowly, and I realized I knew her somehow. And she said, "Is it okay if if I sit here with you?" And she said, "I brought two gentlemen with me because I didn't know what to expect." And she goes, "And I'm actually dismissing them. They're free to go. I feel safe." We sat there and tried to make the connections of how we knew each other, And she said, "You know what? I walk down the street all the time. I go get my hair done not too far from here, and I've never looked down." She goes, "What a shame." She goes, "I feel so awful." But a bunch of us saw the report on CNN yesterday, and the Black alumni. We were all talking about it. Who is this man? Who is this young man? And how can we help him? And I kind of was taken aback. I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "What do you need?" No one had ever asked me that. People always give you what they have. They give you what they don't need anymore. They give you what they're going to throw away. They give you. She asked me what I needed. And I said, "Clarification. What do you mean?" She said, "Well, if you just want food, I'll bring you food. If you need clothes, I'll bring you clothes. If you need tent supplies and things to live in, I'll bring you that. If you want to go to rehab, I'll help you go to rehab. If you need to go to the doctor, I can help you with medical care. I see you have vision issues and other things. Have you checked your blood pressure? Have you done this?" I'm like, no. She said, "If you need mental health support, I know some therapists, and I'd be willing to help you get it. Take care of that." She said, "Or if you want to get off the street, or if you want nothing at all, that's cool too." And I sat there and thought about it, and I just smiled and said, "I want it all." And she delivered.
And so that CNN article really was the catalyst.
It was the catalyst for everything.
To get you to where you are now. I mean, there was a lot of other situations, people that helped, and you put in the effort and everything, but it was that one CNN
what did it
story.
And she helped us get off the street in about 21 days after that, which is amazing. I had gone down the housing path 8 times with different outreach organizations over the years, and none of them had gotten that far. In 21 days, she had me and my husband, on our path. She got us into rehab, and I need to say something about this. There's something about timing. There's something about perhaps God's grace, or however you want to call it, however you see the world working, because within days of her helping us and getting us ready to go into rehab, we found out that I had severe glaucoma. I had pressure of 30, which is just off the charts in the one eye that I have surviving. And the doctor said another month or two and I'd have no vision at all. About 4 or 5 days later, while we're at her house having a dinner, David experienced chest pains, and it was just the two of us at this point in one of the rooms, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was indigestion, so I told him to take some antacid and so forth. But then he came back and told me his left arm was numb. That's when I knew what it was. So within a day, he's in major heart surgery, and just all this, his family coming to visit that. They haven't seen us since we've been on the street. And the next introduction is us in the hospital with their brother having open heart surgery. If we hadn't been helped by her, this would have occurred on the street.
Right.
He wouldn't have made it. He wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
Timing was so critical to these things, and you never know. That one interview saved our lives, saved my vision. It did so much.
This is a good segue, because while you were homeless, I know you had some other interviews, some other interactions with journalists, and I'm sure you've had a lot now, right? Yeah. What do you feel journalists do good? What do you feel they don't do so good? And how would you recommend 2 things: that journalists tell the story of homelessness with people that lived experience? How do you write about it? But also, how do you approach people?
I'm glad you asked that, because I put a little thought into this in the past couple of days, and I have made some Copious notes.
Oh,
um,
wow.
yeah, the things that they do well is often come in with an angle on a story to give it a topic. When you're homeless, there's so much going on that oftentimes I used to say, it was like stream of consciousness. My mind was, there's so many things going on, so the story may be hard to grasp. So they come in and they usually are good at focusing you on one or two things. To get to the story, I'm going to leave it there with that being the good, because there were so many other things, and the bad part, or the worst part of it, I'm going to start with, is they often come in with preconceived notions. Those same focus points that they have aren't always the case with the person they're interviewing. And so they're trying to basically project certain issues upon you, certain conditions upon you, and lead you to where they want you to go, or they think you need to go with the story. And that can be really stressful. It can be really damaging to the way you see yourself and the importance of your story.
And for somebody that's vulnerable, say somebody that mental illness or maybe is under the influence, and you come in and you're spinning the story, like were aware of that.
Yeah.
Some people might not be aware of that. And
And-
then they're broadcast and
Right.
they see their story, and it's not really their story.
It's the journalist's story. I had a few situations where a journalist really got frustrated with me because I was not going to go down the road he was trying to put me down. He was trying to imply that, everyone steals and everyone does this, that, and another. One of the things that me and my husband decided when we became homeless is that we were going to uphold the same standards to ourselves that we had always lived by, which meant no lying, no cheating, no stealing. We did that. It meant a lot of times we went without.
Integrity matters.
Integrity, yes, because
morals matter.
I knew at some point I would emerge from this homelessness, and I wanted to emerge with my integrity intact. But I made a list. I made a bunch of things here, and I'm going to go through them fairly rapidly. One of the first things that would be really helpful when interviewing someone who's experiencing homelessness is, if at all possible, give prior notice. That makes a huge difference. It gives you a chance to wrap it around your head, to think it over, to process, to maybe even reflect upon your situations, and be ready. Because usually it's just in the moment. They're coming through almost like someone's in a national emergency situation, and there's the Red Cross, and they need the story now, and you got to tell me this now, otherwise we're moving on. And it's just another, and it goes, and there's a lot of pressure in that, and it really changes the narrative. It really affects the person. So give notice if you can.
So when that journalist comes to the tent or to the RV or to the car or even the sleeping bag on the sidewalk, that's somebody's home, and they need to respect it like it's somebody's home.
Yes. And just like anything else, you can knock on the imaginary door. You can say hello, step back. Do not put your head into the tent. That is not something to do, and it's very intrusive.
When you're dealing with somebody who may or may not have a cell phone, may not have access to charge that cell phone, may not have the ability to pay for that cell phone.
Right.
When you're trying to reach them, you have to have patience because they may not respond right away. Exactly. But as you said, you need to, inform them of what this interview is about. You have to, have a little patience and keep at it, because that person just, they're not checking their email like you are at your laptop.
You are not a priority. Survival is. If it means coming by the day before or a week before or something and letting them know, then that's what you do if you can, and by all means. The other thing after that, I would say, is make sure it's a good time for them. Are they able to speak freely? Is there too much going on at the moment? There's often all types of drama. There could be sweeps by the city coming up, and they're trying to figure out where they're going to move to and get their things. There might be drama with other homeless people who are maybe trying to poach their things. There might be drama with residents. Residents all the time like to take our things because there was no recourse. The young kids would come and steal our bikes because, if you call the police, they're not going to come and help you get your bike back. They don't care that you bought it from somebody.
I want to add on to that too, is be aware. Like, for instance, when I'm interviewing somebody that's flying a sign or panhandling, I'm interrupting how they generate revenue. And
Yeah.
I'm very conscious of that to either make the interview quick so they can get back to flying a sign or panhandling, or, hey, is this a bad time? Can I come back later? I don't want to interrupt your, because that
Right.
$25, $30 that person makes could be,
It could really affect their
medicine
day.
they need, food, a night in a hotel, a shower.
It could be for a debt they owe to another person who may come and beat their ass because they didn't have it. You don't know. You need to make sure it's a good time for them.
Yeah.
I think you also need to create empathy when you meet with someone. So you got to have some sort of connection. So look for their strengths. And maybe talk about those first rather than talk about everything that's wrong. Maybe talk about what they're doing right. The fact that they are surviving, the fact that they have a tent, the fact that they have food to eat or have friends or community, that they have good memories of their family that they had, just find some strengths to connect around. And this is going to sound harsh, but if you want that story, if you're willing to go there and talk to them, like I said, you need to be willing to come to the level they're at. If they're sitting on the ground, you sit on the ground with them. That's simple. You've got the wherewithal to get your pants cleaned. It's not a big deal.
Right. If you were at somebody's house, you'd be sitting at their kitchen table. They don't have a kitchen table.
Yeah, exactly. So, if they've got milk crates, you sit on a milk crate with them too. Whatever it is, don't ask for special. Can you have something to put on there first? Can you cover that? That looks dirty. No. Then you're not getting you've already created a separation between you. Let them give their story and the way they want to, and then give gentle guidance. Maybe let them tell, like we did here. Let the person tell some of their own backstory first, so that you get to know them, and then you can go in for what it is you're trying to focus on. Make no judgments, not just verbally. Watch your body language and facial expressions. We often make judgments without being aware of our body making those same judgments.
Oh my gosh, so important.
I've had that happen where I'm saying something and I can tell the person doesn't believe me, or they're just flipping me out, or whatever, and the eyes roll or something. And yeah, that's just disrespectful. You have to take things on face value. You're asking this person for their perspective and how they think of things, and they may be under an influence. They may have a twisted perspective of some sorts because of what has just happened to them. But this is real to them. And that's what you need. You have to validate it. You can't sit there and try to tell them that it's not real to them. So the body language is very important. Your language itself is extremely important. Be aware of how comfortable or how uncomfortable they seem with your presence, and make changes accordingly. And if they seem uncomfortable, let them know and ask them what you can do to make them more comfortable, so that they will realize that you're not trying to make them feel that way. Offer breaks. See what they may need first. And with that, I always say, bring water. Yeah. Bring something as a minimum. Bring water.
I bring socks all the time. I probably gave you a pair of socks because everybody gets socks.
Absolutely. Make it clear that you're listening and interested. Respect their boundaries and time. Maybe you can't get the interview all in one go. Maybe they need to hit the recycling place by 4:15 before they close, or whatever. And so you can continue it at another date, but respect their boundaries and time. Establish trust and offer privacy, because not everyone feels comfortable telling their story, talking about others around them with those others around them. People have
it almost could come across as snitching.
Yes. One of the things
which is a negative, and you got to be very conscious of that.
One of the skills you develop while being homeless is your sight and your listening. And so, although someone may be standing at this telephone pole and it's 20 feet away, trust they're listening, and they see what's going on, because they can look at the reflection of a car window that is in front of them and see what's happening behind them. And people don't realize that. And so, he's facing the other way. Yeah, but he's looking in a mirror right at you and watching. And you feel that as the person being interviewed, and you're aware of that. And so offer them, are you comfortable here? Do you want to go to the library, or do you want to just maybe move under that tree over there? And so that they have options.
Don't force. Like when you told me no, I was like, gosh, I hope you feel better. Right. Yeah. And exactly. I know reporters have a story. They have an agenda, right? But you wouldn't force it on a house person. Yeah. So just because that person's living in a tent and they're stationary and they can't necessarily run away from you.
Right.
And
there's no door.
No, right?
Yes, exactly. And it doesn't mean stand on the curb in the street because no, you're still on their property.
Imagine being the reason someone's life takes a turn for the better. At Invisible People, we believe everyone has the power to make a difference. Every day, millions of people suffer the harsh realities of homelessness. But together, we can change that. By supporting Invisible People, you become the hero in the stories of those who are often ignored and overlooked. Your donation directly impacts our efforts to create powerful content that educates and inspires the public to influence policy change. You can change the narrative and make a real difference. Visit invisiblepeople.tv/donate today and become the hero that helps us continue our important work.
Make it clear, I would say, what the next steps are, so that they know how it's going to be used.
Informed consent.
Yeah.
Okay, it's going to be on YouTube. It's going to be on CNN or whatever. We're talking here for an hour, right? It's going to be cut down. Right. And you need to tell the person that. Respect them as you would a house person. Sorry, I have a little bit of passion there.
No, absolutely. I know it's not always possible to just give them the deadlines and we need to go, but bring them a proof or show them what it's going to look like before it goes out. If you have the wherewithal to do so, never leave someone in a worse mental state than when you found them.
I'm so glad you brought it up because I thought about it earlier, but I was waiting for you. And, sometimes you can trigger past trauma. And, everything we're saying is not just with the homeless people. It's house people, too. That's so important.
A good journalist knows how to bring about positive closure to the interview. Make them feel valued with the information they've given them, their time valued, their story valued, and make them feel that they can trust you with that because you now have an asset of theirs. That story and that little piece of their life is walking off in your notebook or in your phone or wherever it is, however you did it. And they need to be able to trust you with that.
The story you told about your family and you had a good, it ended up good, but that person that you're about ready to interview is about going to be vulnerable. And like you said, even your brother was outside your tent. You didn't want to unzip the zipper, right? Yeah. We don't go to our class reunion and raise our hand and say, I'm homeless. I'm in a homeless shelter, right? You lie. Oh, things could be better, right? And you got to understand that somebody who is living daily through trauma, it's a real tough and important decision for them to say yes to an interview, and you have to respect that.
Yeah, you're putting the spotlight on. You're putting us on Front Street. It's being broadcast. If you are recording on video, you need more than a waiver. It's not just the person you're filming; it's their neighbors, it's people around them. There's so much involved, and it takes. You really have to be more comprehensive in approaching that and getting permission, getting comfort with it. Establishing yourself as someone who they can trust, because that really is a big deal. People don't.
And I'll insert one quick thing. And I learned this when we did our first documentary with PBS. They had address on their releases, and the homeless people were like, "I'm homeless," right? So in Invisible People, we ask people to do in-camera releases, and it makes it easier. Maybe the person can't read or write or whatever. But your other point is, do not videotape anybody without permission.
And people are wary of signing things that they don't know and don't understand. And unfortunately, most of these video and audio waivers are just unnecessarily lengthy. And people aren't going to sit there and go through it, or they're just going to look at it and go, they're trying to put me into something,
it's got too much fine print.
Yeah, exactly. What is all this stuff? All you need to know is am I willing to be on camera or not?
Exactly.
Then it goes into your use of your likeness and all that. Well, what does that mean? Does it mean they can create an AI character that looks like me? It just opens.
I didn't even think about that. Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about it. Shawn, I'm so glad you gave this so much thought. Awesome.
And then it's like. Offer people a chance to prepare. Once again, particularly when you're doing video, you're interviewing the homeless, but it's a home interview. If you were coming to my home and interview me, then I would probably comb my hair and straighten up and maybe, see if I can find some
Yeah.
wife. So give them the same opportunity, and let them decide whether or not they're okay being filmed just the way they are, or if they want to change and do something, because it's about them having that feeling of self-respect, because then going, oh my God, the way I was looking on that day when he, I
Might not have
maybe
showered.
maybe I soiled myself, maybe I, whatever, and someone just coming up there with the camera, give
Wow.
them the choice.
And I try to say, it's the same. If you went into the nicest restaurant in Beverly Hills with a camera, half the people would run away from you. I don't have my makeup on. Half the
Right.
people would run to you saying, I want to be on TV.
Right.
So it's not just a homeless thing, but
Yes.
when you're thinking about people that are
Well, Jim,
living on the streets that might not have access to running water in the bathroom or a mirror or whatever, it's a different layer of, self-esteem and appearance that you need to be aware of.
yeah, and you get much more done when people feel good about the way they look. Another quick short aside, if you don't mind. One of the homeless healthcare was the outreach organization I started working with when I was on the street, and they were helping me. So I need to go to the registrar's office in Norwalk. They were having a hard time getting me to go to Norwalk. It's, how that will pick you up or do this and that. Until finally the case manager, she said, you know what? I think I know what it is. Why don't I come by and I'll bring you some clothes, and I'll bring you some wipes, and I'll bring you some lotion and maybe something to comb your hair. And she did. She came by with underwear, socks, pants, shirt, everything, and waited in the car for an hour while I got ready, because all the other appointments I kept missing. And because I was just filthy. I was awful. And I'm going to a public records building in Norwalk with other people, and I, it's there's self-respect and dignity. And so I want to feel like a person. And she gave me that chance to feel like it took the extra mile, to get it done. And I was forever thankful. That meant so much to me that they were willing to do that. That doesn't happen often, but that should happen more often. But it's just thinking about people's situations, putting yourself into it, and maybe walking through it and see what does that look like for them. You know what it looks like for you, but it looks different for someone who's homeless. It looks very different. And if you're not sure how that looks, ask someone who's homeless about how that looks. They're the best ones to tell you. Yeah.
Yep. So now uncovering the story of homelessness, not just how to treat homeless people and how to approach a homeless person. But I mean, for me right now, I think criminalization is the top topic. It's really scary what's happening. There's all these other topics that are important, like lack of affordable housing, racism, lack of a living wage. You can go on and on and on. How would you recommend to journalists to authentically cover stories on the topic of homelessness that matter?
I've been on this platform recently with the mayor and others about the messaging we use, because I think it affects everything within the system. Make sure that we're using hopeful messaging. We need to make sure that we show what we're really trying to accomplish. We'll see headlines that say, Echo Park homeless people removed. You'll see another one that says Venice Beach cleaned of the unhoused. Downtown LA sanitized. And what are we really trying to clean, sanitize, remove? That's what it looks like in most of these reports, because we're fueled by the NIMBYs. They're the ones making the most noise, and so we're meeting their demand, and that's what they're demanding. It's all about cleaning, removing, and sanitizing, and how things inconvenience them, let alone that someone's entire life has been inconvenienced. We're really trying to rebuild, connect people back to their families and lives. We're trying to help people get back into the workforce. We're trying to help people go back to school, maybe take care of their medical needs, their mental health issues. We're trying to help people contribute. We're trying to help people find joy again. That's what we're really doing. It's not cleaning, sanitizing, removing, because those terms did the most damage to me when I was homeless. Help almost always arrived with sanitation trucks first. And that sent the message to me. We were trash. That's all we were. We often become the adjective that people put before us. It went from being homeless people or people experiencing homelessness to the homeless. Suddenly someone became this noun of they're defined by that one condition only. And we got to stop doing that, because it affected the way I saw myself. I didn't think I was deserving of help. I would I would push other people to the front when outreach workers would come, because I'm a Yale graduate. I should be able to figure this out. That person, well, he's going to have a harder time. So if they only have limited time and they're telling us they're only going to help so many, you guys go. And that's what I would do, because I should be able to figure this out. And I don't deserve to be helped by them, because, it just, the messaging gets to you. You hear it so much. You hear it, and it affects the way others look at you. It creates violence against us, because it makes others feel that they can beat on us, that they can take from us, that they can decide to, while we're sleeping, people would come and cut all our tent poles. You guys don't belong here anyway. And they cut all your tent poles. They would smash everything you have. And these are people who live in the apartments next to you.
Right.
And you'd have, and because they're seeing on TV that you guys need to be cleaned out. Well, we're just helping the city. They haven't gotten here yet, so we're going to help them clean this out. And like I said, it's about try to leave on a positive note whenever you interact with somebody, so that they have a good experience with journalism, so that they feel good about their story. Because as awful as their story may be, it's my story.
Yeah. And they probably had a few bad experiences with journalism.
Yes.
So it's important. One of the reasons I started Invisible People was to give a good experience to people that are unhoused out on the street.
Yeah.
That they, because I'd seen nonprofits and so many journalists kind of abuse people. And I wanted to make sure, I know that going into an interview, there've been, either nonprofits or journalists before me, and it's probably not a good experience.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of that.
At the end of the day, I should feel heard, and I should feel proud of what we've created together.
Oof. That is perfect. I don't think it's going to get better than that.